Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really specific world, thanks to the text you shared with us. We're looking at memories of growing up in the poles of Ahmedabad.
Right, those traditional neighborhoods in the old walled city. And our mission really is to get a vivid feel for what life was actually like there for you, the listener.
Yeah, what was the social structure like? How did these early experiences shape the author? We're aiming to pull out some maybe surprising insights.
It's quite evocative writing, and the author kicks things off with this great analogy, Ahmedabad as a bad habit.
Yeah. Something you feel maybe you should quit, but you just have to see how long it lasts. It suggests a really complex relationship, doesn't it?
It really does. A perfect way to start thinking about these memories. So, okay, where do we begin?
Well, the sensory stuff hits you immediately, that very first memory.
Oh, the bathing scene, yeah.
Yeah.
The 3-year-old, the mother, the donkey hand pump.
Right over the bore well. And that detail about the drain hole nearby, the soapy water disappearing, the author mentions a shutter. It just puts you right there.
It absolutely does. So vivid. And maybe we should clarify for listeners, a pole is basically these tight-knit housing clusters in the old city, often built around courtyards.
Exactly. Shared entrances, very communal. And from that personal memory, the author kind of zooms out, describes the poles themselves.
The streets, constricting narrow streets, he calls them, and the havelis, the houses, almost bumping into each other like pugnacious pugilists.
That's such a great description. You can picture it. Hardly any direct sun, damp air in the monsoon,
Although, interestingly, he says the summers were cooler inside those dense areas.
which you might not expect. And this density, this closeness, it clearly had social effects too.
Definitely. Like that belief, he mentions people in the polls having lighter skin because they saw less sun.
Yeah, and that apparently made brides from the poles more sought after.
Which is, well, it shows how physical traits got tied up in social value, maybe ideas about a more protected, purer life or something. Though he adds the caveat, Poles usually married within poles anyway.
Right, keeping it all very contained. It really underscores how incredibly tight-knit these communities were.
The physical closeness just bred this intense neighborliness, privacy,
Right.
almost non-existent apparently.
Family secrets spreading like wildfire, he says. It sounds like the whole pole operated as one, like single organism.
An organic entity, yeah. The collective definitely seems more important than the individual. It's a very collectivist feel, much more than we maybe experience today.
And you see that in how things spread. A good joke would do the rounds instantly, but so would bad news, sorrow.
Deep fraternity, he calls it. But also, maybe, a limited view of the world outside the city walls. Very insular.
And the child rearing, that was quite something.
Oh, yeah. The idea that if your kid wasn't home for dinner, hey, no big deal. A neighbor probably fed them.
It sounds almost casual, doesn't it? And kids rarely went missing inside the poles.
That story about a child falling asleep at a relative's place and no one really panicking, it speaks volumes about the trust, the safety net.
It really does. It paints this picture of constant support, almost idyllic.
Yeah, and it shows the limits of that tight community. The boundaries weren't just walls, they were social, maybe ideological too.
And the author connects this to the physical structure, too, the poles as a giant strainer.
Designed to keep outsiders or outside influences out. Those maze-like streets only locals could navigate.
Relatives visiting felt lost, stifled even. So for insiders, it's safe, maybe convivial.
But for outsiders, it could feel confusing, maybe even unwelcoming, trapping.
And the author reflects on that. Maybe it was good he didn't stay longer, that this sheltered life could create a false sense of security.
In a warped worldview, yeah. Limited horizons, especially for the working men who mostly stayed within the walled city.
You wonder what impact that had, right, on their view of the wider world, on their aspirations.
It likely cemented a strong local identity, but yeah, maybe limited other perspective. It's a trade-off. And notice the shift in tone here from those vivid early memories to, well, the mundane.
Yeah, the repetitiveness. Life at the Greek market, same stories, same jokes, day after day.
Even the talk at home, focused on cooking, household stuff, predictable.
But then you get these brilliant little details that just bring it alive again, like the Sunday breakfast.
Oh, the jalebi and fafta, yes, and the fried green chilies served with tea.
In old newspapers. And the author points out the lead ink hazard.
And the hawker's funny sales pitch about English newspaper ink being better, it's such a specific, quirky detail.
It really is. And the scene after breakfast.
Huh. The symphony of burps and hiccups.
Yeah.
The endless tea refills.
And the suspicion that even the cooking oil was probably fried.
Total indulgence in sugary, fatty food then,
Mm.
snoozing it off in the afternoon. It's just
Yeah.
so sensory, so real.
A reminder that even in this unique setting, daily life had its rhythms, its predictable comforts, maybe?
Exactly. But the community also had ways of dealing with, let's say, disruptions, scandals.
Right. He says potential scandals were ambushed and efficiently overpowered by the elders. In those narrow lanes, you can almost picture it. It shows that social regulation, that sort of internal course correction, in action.
It shows the resilience, doesn't it? How the community maintained its balance. And it's interesting how this somewhat closed-off pole life was still deeply connected to the city's economy.
Yeah, through Relief Road, that was the main drag, the mercantile hub. Lots of Pole residents worked or had businesses there.
So even if they lived insularly, their livelihoods often weren't. And the text mentions the wealth created there.
And people keeping cash, jewelry right there at home give you a real sense of past economic habits.
And historically, the wealthy merchants actually built their grand havelis in the poles.
Which gave the area cultural weight, political weight too. It blurred the lines between home and work for those Gujarati merchants.
Absolutely. And that tradition of trade around Manikchak,
Yeah.
small merchants operating with almost religious conviction, the author says.
That deep entrepreneurial spirit. And then the detail about the stock exchange, India's second oldest nearby.
Trading under banyan trees originally. Can you imagine?
And later, seeing brokers in traditional clothes making secret deals with handkerchiefs. It's like stepping back in time.
It really is. Such unique historical color. And then there's the cultural life mixed in too. The music bands.
Tucked away in narrow buildings, you'd see the brass instruments, the red uniforms.
And the care they took of the Petromax lanterns for weddings at night. So specific.
My favorite image is the band leader walking backwards playing the oboe. The author remembers it as a childhood marvel.
It's just wonderful. All these threads come together.
Right.
The social, the economic, the cultural.
Creating this incredibly rich, dense picture of life in the walled city. And the author's final thought really sums it up.
That communal nature, the feeling of well-being it could give, even if maybe it wasn't always perfectly real.
It was good while it lasted. There's nostalgia there, but acceptance too.
Yeah. So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really explored the pole's unique structure, both physical and social.
The strong community, its benefits, but also its limitations, the undercurrents of division.
The mix of tradition and just everyday life, and how the author's view of it all evolves.
And maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on. How do these kinds of tight-knit communities compare to what we call community today? Online, offline.
Right. What have we gained? What have we maybe lost in shifting away from models like the poles?
And how do those places where we start out, our earliest environments, how do they keep shaping us even when we're long gone?
Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.